Welcome to Adding Dollars. In this video, I'll be going over how much you could have made if you used the wheel strategy on Amazon stock. I'll be testing this over a 1-year period and showing you the backtest results. Before I jump into that, if you're new to the wheel strategy or covered calls and cash secured puts, then make sure to pause the video and check out the videos in the description below. Now let's go ahead and jump into it. I'll quickly start by describing the wheel strategy, and then we can look at the specific wheel strategy that I'll be running in my backtest. So the way the wheel strategy starts is you start by selling a cash secured put, and then if you get assigned on that position, which basically means the stock ends up closing below the strike price of your put at expiration, you end up having to buy 100 shares of the stock for each option contract that you're selling. So in this example, let's pretend we're selling one put option contract. If we got assigned, we would be obligated to buy 100 shares of the stock at the strike price of the put. So if we get assigned, we now own 100 shares of the stock, and then we would start selling covered calls. So we would sell a call option at a price higher than the shares that we own. And what could happen in this scenario is if the stock price ends up closing higher than the call option that we're selling at expiration, then you end up getting assigned and have to sell your 100 shares of the stock. And then as you can see here, the process would just loop back and start over again. The alternative path is when you sell this cash secured put, the stock price might not come down below the strike price of the put option that you're selling, in which case you're not assigned, which means your cash secured put expires. You just get to keep the premium from selling the put option and then repeat the process. Let's say you do that a couple times, you then end up getting assigned because the stock price does come down low enough. You end up buying 100 shares of the stock, and now you can start doing the call portion of it. If you sell a call, but you don't get assigned, which means the stock doesn't end up closing above the call option strike price at expiration, then your call option just expires, you get to keep the premium, and you just repeat selling calls until this other path happens. Eventually, if you do get assigned and have to sell your 100 shares, again, you start the process over again, and that's why they call it the wheel strategy. Now let's go ahead and look at the specific wheel strategy we'll be doing for these backtests. This is exactly the same diagram as the wheel strategy with just a couple more specifics around the strategy. So in this case, we'll be selling a cash secured put that has a delta of less than or equal to 0.2. You can think of delta as the probability that that option ends up in the money. So in this case, we're only going to be selling options that have a less than 20% chance of ending up in the money, or you can think of that as less than a 20% chance of getting assigned. So you may end up just selling put options for a while because there's only a 20% chance you end up getting assigned. And then once we do get assigned, we'll sell calls that have a 20% chance of getting assigned. So again, you may end up just selling calls, collecting premium until eventually the stock does rise and you get assigned, have to sell your shares, and then repeat the process. Additionally, I'll only be selling options with weekly expirations, so expiring the following Friday. And then I'll also be doing these backtests with only one option at a time. I'm not going to be selling multiple options. If you're interested in seeing backtests with different delta values, different expirations, or a different number of contracts, feel free to leave those down in the comments and I can share the results. Now that we know the strategy we're backtesting, here are the results. I've written some code using QuantConnect to backtest the strategy, and this screen shows the results. So this is a backtest starting from October 6th, 2022 up to October 6, 2023, so a 1-year period. The main numbers to focus on here are the equity, the net profit, and the return. So the equity is basically if I closed out all of my positions right now, what my total equity would be. When we started this test, we had $15,000, and based on this, we are ending with $15,931, or a 6.21% return. The net profit here is a little bit higher than the $931 seen here because this is the total amount of profit we have actually captured. This equity shows if we had just gone ahead and closed whatever trade we might have had open, that would have been the result. So we might be holding a trade that's down about $700 right now. and that's why this number is slightly different than this number. But let's go ahead and just use this total equity so it's a little bit more of a real test. So our return would be about 6.21%. And another thing that's always interesting to look at is the max drawdown. So we can see that the max drawdown during this test was about 10%, and that would be the drawdown on our equity. So that means at some point our equity total was down up to 10.36%. Overall, another interesting stat about this test is that we see we have a loss rate of 16% and a win rate of 84%. As always, I like to also compare the wheel strategy against a buy and hold strategy. So if we were to buy and hold Amazon over a 1-year period, and again, this is slightly different time period than what we're looking at. So this is from October 14th up to October 13th of this year. We can see that this would have had a 15% return, which is significantly higher than our 6% that we saw. And again, I always like to compare this against buying and holding the S&P 500 as well. And if we look here, a slightly different time period, off by 1 week, but you would have 17.91%. An interesting thing to also look at, though, is that your max drawdown here would be much larger. So if we look at this time period, it's almost down about 30%, whereas our wheel strategy only had a max drawdown of 10%. If you're interested in seeing this type of analysis for other stocks or over different time periods, leave that down below in the comments and I will make a video showing those results as well. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of my videos, and I'll see you all in the next one.